I got to come clean, and I have to acknowledge that I've been a fan of what you've been doing for a couple weeks. I'd say maybe a month and a half now. I just came off of some long fasting. I was doing some prolonged fasting, and I was trying to heal myself of some autoimmune stuff. I had some psoriasis on my scalp, and I've got some rashes on my elbow. And while I was fasting, I had no symptoms. And then for the longest time, I had been eating sort of a ketogenic diet. And although the symptoms were lessened, I just noticed that when I start eating again, I continue to have the problems. And I couldn't pinpoint it until I started finding your videos. And so I started taking out more of the plant foods that I was eating, specifically nuts that were not soaked. And things started clearing up. And I did that for a good 3 weeks before my birthday, which was April 10th. And
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man. Just turned 40. Yeah. And I bought I even got because I'm totally sold on what you were saying. I was a fan of Weston A. Price many years ago, and I realized that, we need the collagen. And so I got a bunch of also liverwurst. I love liverwurst. And so I bought all that stuff. I had been doing it, feeling great. But then around my birthday time, I started eating birthday cake. And then my mom invited me over, and she makes rice and beans. And so I carved up. And it was interesting, although I was feeling great up until that point, after carving up and then feeling guilty, and then going to the gym on Monday, a few days later, and training, I felt amazing. I felt like Superman. And I realized it had a lot to do with the fact that I just ate a ton of starch.
Yeah.
What do you say to athletes that, like for me, for example, like I'm trying to clear up some health issues, but I still want to be strong in the gym. How do I go about doing this carnivore thing, but still get that Superman feeling from eating
carbs,
superfoods like, grains?
Grains.
What do I do? I'm kind of in a bind here.
Well, so here's the question for you. How long were you doing carnivore?
Well, strictly carnivore, I'd say about 3 weeks.
Okay. And then how long were you doing keto before that? I mean, were you fully fat adapted? Years.
Yeah. And of course I would break it here and there, but like 90% of the time I was eating keto.
Yeah. So I think that there's an interesting kind of thing here. I think a lot of people, and I hear this from all the time from people, because I used to do jujitsu and I want to get back into it. But a lot of people will email me and say, hey, I know you do jujitsu, but I notice that when I do carnivore, I feel kind of flat. I don't have the explosiveness. What I have noticed personally is that it took me about 8 weeks to get fully adapted. And that was just, micronutrients and then the full sort of metabolic change over to ketosis for me. And that after that time, I didn't really feel like I was that flat in the gym. And when I eat carbohydrates, I don't really feel a whole lot better in the gym now. I'm not doing quite the same stuff as you. I'm doing strict strength. I'm doing like Muay Thai and kind of a mix of like strength and endurance type stuff. But I think that the first thing I would say to people is if you really want to try this, give it a full 6 to 8 weeks to see how your body adjusts and how the metabolism goes. The other issue that people run into when they're doing carnivore and they feel flat in the gym is they're not eating enough fat. And that can be a main issue for people is that they need more fat, because really you can either use fat or carbohydrate for fuel. You can't really use protein. So if you're too high protein, a lot of people are going to end up feeling flat in the gym. And so for high performance athletes, BJJ, CrossFit, for you, for lifting, this kind of stuff, you can try a carnivore diet that's higher in fat. You want to make sure you're like at least 70% of your calories are from fat. Let your body adapt to that. And I bet you'll get pretty darn close to where you are with carbs as your fuel source long term, but see how you do. If that doesn't work for you, and for the highest level athletes who really want performance and can't get it with fat, I think they should try it first on full carnivore, because I think that most will get there. You can always incorporate like 1 or 2 carbohydrates and see how you feel with those. And you can try and use carbs that you may tolerate. And everybody's going to be a little different in what carb they tolerate. Some people might be able to do white rice. White rice does have lectins. It might trigger people. There are sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have oxalates. So you're kind of balancing, right? One of the carbs people do sometimes is honey. So technically, honey's kind of carnivore, Honey's not really from a plant, a bee makes it. So if you really wanted to, you could use honey. Now, we know that honey and carbohydrates are are going to cause dental problems and issues with sugar. But
Right.
you might try honey if you really are triggered with rice and sweet potato and you really, really want that carbohydrate performance thing. But I'm really not convinced because I really haven't seen it in myself. Again, we're not doing quite the same activities. But, you know, when I was hanging out with Ben Greenfield, the morning of the podcast, he's an animal. He's like, let's do Tabatas. And I was like, oh my God, I never do this shit. You know, so we got it, you know, we got up and we did like, what did we do? We did 4-minute intervals for like over 30 minutes. And I was like, I mean,
Wow.
he's an animal. And I was like, I was fine. I mean, I was hurting because I never do Tabatas, but I could do it. You know, I was able to do it. I didn't feel wiped. I didn't feel flat. I was like, I can do this, you know? And that was, you know, 30 minutes of Tabatas, like 4 minutes. We never had a break. It was just, you know, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 30 minutes. We were alternating the aero bike, which is a machine of torture, and like a series of just like, you know, body weight exercises, burpees and kettlebell swings and stuff. And so personally, I've not felt any decline in my performance, but I'm now 8 months into it. And I really try and push a lot of fat. I'm surfing as much as I can. I'll go out for like 3 or 4 hours and just paddle. I'm fine. So I think that the performance is possible, but there may be like a little bit of adjustment in terms of like how much fat, what's the fat macro. And then if not, you could try honey, but I bet for most people, they don't actually need carbohydrates for performance, but we're still learning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, I'll take your word for it. And it's better not to have the rashes than to have a big pump. So I'm all right with that, man.
Well, so this is the thing. And I talked to Mark Bell about this a lot, you know, glycogen in your muscles will store water. So, you know, people are going to feel more inflated and actually bigger,
Right.
and more tense with carbohydrates. Whether or not that reflects a difference in strength is questionable. You will have bigger pumped up muscles. So for somebody that's doing like a physique competition and it's just visual and not performance, they may need something to like fill the muscles, you know? I don't think I look deflated, but you know, I'm not like, I mean, I'm pretty vascular in general as a guy, but like, you know, I think that if people are going to notice when they eat carbohydrates, they're going to get more glycogen. They're going to feel more pumped. Whether or not that's going to be a difference in strength is questionable. And then you have to think about all the long-term things like what's your mood, what's your, you know, libido, it's all give and take, right? It's this constant sort of equation that we're all working on.